Christian Parenting.
Hi, Jillian. Welcome to the Christian Parenting Podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited. We get to dive right into your book and about you. And I think we're going to have a really good conversation. We already got to talk a little bit about the things we have in common, which is the Space Coast of Florida, which is super fun. So hopefully we get to meet in person someday.
I hope so too. I mean, next time you come, we're going to go to the beach for sure.
Small town. We'll probably run into each other anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, give us a little bit of an introduction. You live in Florida, but tell us about yourself, what you do, tell us about your family, all the good things.
Okay, let's see. I am married to Andy. We have been married for 16 years. I used to be a TV journalist, and I thought I would go back into television news after taking 1 year off. He was in the military at the time, and when we got our next assignment, because he just had this 1 year residency program, because he's an orthodontist. And so I thought I would go back into TV news, and then we got the news that we were moving to Alamogordo, New Mexico, where there is no TV stations, let alone a Target. So that's kind of where my story landed. It was then in Alamogordo, we found out that we were having a child with Down syndrome. And so that really changed everything for me. And so I wasn't in TV news. I started writing about my experience with my son with Down syndrome on the internet. And now here I am. So now I'm a mom of 3. Also, in this book, I talk about my 3rd child who was born with multiple medical complexities. So I have a very typically developing daughter, a son with a disability, and then a youngest child who is healthy now. But at the time when he was born, it was very touch and go there for a while. So we have kind of run the gamut of parenting. My oldest is 12. My youngest is 8. This is my 2nd book. So yeah, from TV journalist to author, and I love it.
Yeah, and I love that you so vulnerably share your story, because I think that's just such a powerful way to make parents and everyone just feel like they're not alone in what they're going through. You know, because when you're going through some hard things like a diagnosis or a kid being really sick, that can feel really lonely and isolating. So I appreciate that you just share your story so openly.
Yeah, I think that used to be a person that wanted my life to look shiny. And to be honest, my life was very shiny as a young person. And then all these unexpected hit us again and again for 5 years. And that didn't work for me anymore. And I don't really think it works for anyone, really. We are all human. We're all subjected to the joys and the sorrows that this world brings. And it's so much better when we can share those with each other instead of trying to do what society often tells us, which is to push away the negative. Don't share that. That's too negative. But actually doing that makes us physically and mentally sick. So that's why I share more vulnerably than I used to. It's because I know how healing it was for me to read stories and to talk to people who were real about their hard things. And also the ones who I really related to still could be real about their hard things and still keep their eyes open to the beautiful things in their life. And that's where the manifestation of this book has come.
Yeah, because 2 things can be true at once. You can be
Absolutely
going through something hard and have the joy of the Lord at the same time, even though it's hard to understand unless you have a relationship with Jesus, but it can happen. It can be true. And today we're talking about the 2 emotions that do seem to go opposite, but you can be at the same time, which is overwhelmed and grateful. And I think I told you before that I think those are 2 emotions that every parent feels literally every morning, like getting the school kids off to school. You're like, I'm overwhelmed, but I'm so grateful for these kids. So Let's talk about those things and specifically the word "and" in there, because you really like to emphasize that we like to use but or and. So explain the distinction between the 2 of those things.
Yeah. When we say so, I'll give you an example. Right now, I am very overwhelmed in my parenting life. My daughter is in a main stage production. She's an actress and singer, and that has taken over our lives in a lot of ways, a lot of driving. It's every day, right? That's just kind of our normal overwhelm with parenting. And then also my son with Down syndrome is receiving therapy twice a week, more than an hour away. And so we are very overwhelmed. And I could tell you that and say, but we have all these great things going on. You know, he's making progress, but she's thriving, but we're still happy, whatever. But disconnects that first part of our truth. It's saying it downplays it and acknowledges the challenges that we are going through while also looking for the good things that are still playing out right alongside those challenges. And so I just think that we can almost kind of gaslight ourselves when we use the word but, and acknowledges that two competing truths can still be true at the same time. And it just allows us to live fuller into our humanity.
Can you give me an example of like how someone can like reframe that thinking just a little bit in their day-to-day life and to use that and instead of the
Yeah.
but?
Yeah. So maybe you are a parent whose child is really struggling at school, right? And I have
Mm.
been there, and it can be all encompassing, especially if there are learning challenges or behavioral challenges or both, which I have experienced with my son. And so I know how all consuming that can be. And so instead of saying he's really struggling at school, but we're good, it's just saying like he is really struggling with school. And I also can see how this hard thing is leading me to this good thing, or maybe they're not connected. And I can also see how this is not my only truth in my life. Yes, this
Mm.
does feel so overwhelming right now. And there are also other good truths playing out at the same time. Maybe it's the view from your back window that just brings you so much peace and reminds you of God's goodness every day. Maybe it's a win that you're having at work. Maybe it's a spiritual growth period that you yourself are going through at the same time this hard thing is happening. It just allows us to acknowledge the hard and keep our eyes open to other good truths also playing out alongside.
Yeah. I love that mindset so much. And I want to kind of go back a little bit to what you kind of alluded to at the beginning, that kind of concept of toxic positivity. Like
Mhm.
everything's good all the time. So, what is the distinction between the two? And like, if you're a person who tends to lean towards that toxic positivity, or maybe even really negative, but really toxic positivity, like, how can you understand the difference and make sure that you're not going that way?
Yeah. Let me give you an example that when I think of toxic positivity, this is just a story that comes to my mind every time. And it was when my youngest, who was born with kidney issues and he was born with club feet. And so he had
Mm,
these massive casts, all like full leg casts as a baby. And this guy came up to me at church and wanted to know what the casts were for. And so I told him like all the things that Preston had going on. He also had a nephrostomy tube, like a tube draining his kidney at the time, right? I mean, he was very
mm.
sick. And so I just was kind of explaining what we had been through and what he was going through. And he said, "Oh, you're blessed, you're blessed, you're blessed," right? That's toxic positivity. That is saying, but you have Jesus, everything's fine. And that is just not how we are called to be, and it's not how we are called to live with one another. Jesus was also real about his hard things. Jesus wept. Jesus asked God to change his fate. Jesus was real. He was real with other people. We are supposed to mourn with those who mourn. And also, I think that relates to the relationship we have with ourselves. Like, it is okay to admit things are hard. It is okay to grieve. It is okay to be angry. It is okay to be sad. And I think the way that we do that as people who are Christians, who believe in the light of Christ, who have the light of Christ in us and around us, is to bring it all to God and say, I am spent. I am
Mm,
fill in the blank. And I know you are still here. And I can see you working in this way. And I can see how I am not alone. I think that toxic positivity is only leaning into the light. I think that we are supposed to hold the darkness and the light together. Both exist. The darkness of this world is real, and so too is the light. And
yeah.
if we only focus on the darkness, then we will become cynical and you know, we will perish in that way. Our souls will slowly dwindle. And if we only focus on the light, then we are unable to feel empathy for other people and even ourselves. And
Mhm.
so I think we really are meant to live in the and. We're supposed to acknowledge the hard and always keep our eyes open to the light.
Yeah. I think what's so hard about toxic positivity too, as parents, is that When someone responds, like, I have a very sick child and someone responds like, "Oh, you're so blessed, but you don't feel blessed." And you're like, "Am I a bad mom? Like, am I a
Yeah.
bad mom if I don't feel like like, if I'm not liking this part of parenting right now?" And then you start to
Mhm.
doubt yourself, and then you start to go to the negativity way, and it just is so, so hard, but I do feel like our culture really kinda leans that way, like, in an
It's so
extreme.
isolating, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah. Yes.
it's such a weird thing, and I don't understand why it's so prevalent in Christian culture. I mean, I feel
Mm.
like as Christians, we should be able to mostly confide in other Christians. Like, we are supposed to help each other hold each other's burdens. Um, I mean, the Jesus was clear that there will be trouble here. And
Mm.
two, he is here. Both of those things are true. We are not meant to like every aspect of our lives. I just don't think that that's possible. And what an
Yeah.
unreasonable expectation we put on ourselves and put on each other.
Yeah.
I think that life is hard and life is good. And the way that we get through life with our humanity intact is to live in the end.
Do you have any gratitude practices, or I guess you could kind of say and practices that you do with your kids?
Uh, Honestly, very simply is just like going over our low and our high of the day
Mm.
around the dinner
Mhm.
table. And
We do that too.
sometimes, yeah, I think my kids are like really, they don't always want to talk about their lows, but I try to like
Yes.
pull it out of them because I want them to know, like, hey, it's okay to not like every aspect of your day. It's okay to have felt sad, frustrated, whatever have you throughout your day. So I want them to like, okay, let's think about this. Did you like this? Whatever it is, but just try to encourage them to be willing to share that and also to share the high. And that's very, very simple. I know a lot of people already do that, but like that's something we do with our kids that I think that maybe we don't even do with ourselves enough is
Oh,
to
yeah.
go over those hard and good things throughout our days.
Yeah. We
Mhm.
do at the dinner table, we do the best part of your day, the worst part of your day, and then how did you see God today? And
Oh, that's
everybody goes
nice.
through and shares. Yeah, and I think that and we have had people my kids lead it now. Like my daughter is usually the one to ask everyone. So if you come to my house for dinner, chances are like she will sit you down and ask you these questions. So you better be prepared. But we have had people be like, "Oh, you want to talk about the hard parts?" And I'm like, "Yes," because the question 3 is, "How did you see God today?" And then we get to have the conversation of how God was present in all of the moments, the good, the
Mhm.
bad, and everything in between. And that's just so important to talk about with our kids. But it's easy to overlook because
Absolutely.
it does feel so basic.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it might feel basic, but I think that's such a good way to like just train their little hearts that it's okay to admit the hard parts of your day. And I love what you added too to see God in the hard and the good. I think that's really good practice.
Yeah. Yeah. Takes some practice to do it because and sometimes we skip it. To anyone listening, I don't even think we do this perfectly every day. But when we are sitting down at the table, we ask those questions and
I love
it's
it.
helpful for us. Yeah. Okay, I want to switch gears a little bit, kind of because you talk about in your book, Overwhelmed and Grateful, you talk about like order, disorder, and reorder from Walter Brueggemann in the Psalm. So can you tell us? I really liked that concept. Can you tell us what that looks like and just walk us through it a little bit? I know it's like a big
Yes.
question.
Sure. So Walter Brueggemann in his book The Spirituality of the Psalms breaks the Psalms into three categories and he names them orientation, disorientation, reorientation. I renamed it in my book Order, Disorder, Reorder because I just think it's a little bit more approachable. But basically, the Psalms reflect our lives. They reflect what it's like to be in relationship with God. And we go through these cycles of order, disorder, and reorder all throughout life again and again. And so the why I decided to organize the book in that way is to get people to think of practicing honest gratitude is what I call it, practicing the and no matter what phase of life we are in. So right now we are in a phase of order. And like I said, my overwhelm is those normal kind of parenting things like the driving too much and all the kids' activities and that sort of things. That's where we're at. And what does practicing gratitude look like when you're in a phase of order? What does it look like when you're in a phase of disorder? When the storm has come and blown you off course? And that can be challenging. And also, I will tell you that in those 5 years where we lived in turmoil, it also it gives you a new lens at the same time. I feel like I've never felt God's presence more in a period of disorder at times, not throughout the
Mm.
whole 5 years. Please don't get me wrong, but those moments where you just feel the realness of God were very present. And so, what does gratitude look like then? And then, reorder is when the storm has passed. You're not back to the way things once were because you can never really go back, not fully. But you're on a new course and you see the harshness and also the beauty that's where you are. You're reacquainted with God's goodness all over again. And, it's a period of resurrection. I said in my first book, and I talk about it in this book, that my hope is anchored in that God is a God of resurrection. And that doesn't just mean at the end of this life. I think we experience multiple small deaths and resurrections in this life. And I think that is
Mm.
because God brings new life out of what is dead. So that's what reorder is. It's that time
Yeah.
period and what gratitude looks like then.
In a very, like, practical, tangible way, it makes me think about if you're like me, I'm, like, more of a type B person, and that means my house isn't perfectly clean and organized all the time, and I go through seasons of it gets really clean, and then it just naturally gets really messy, and then I kinda have a little panic attack, and then I organize everything and buy all new containers, and there's a whole new system in place, and then we just keep going forever and ever, always buying new containers and readjusting how we do things and
Yeah.
learning from before. And that
Yeah.
is
I
how
think
life is, because there's a season
yeah.
for everything.
There is,
Sorry, go
there
ahead.
is. You're so right, and I think it's also important since you brought up the Walter Brueggemann of it all is, more than half of the Psalms are laments. I
Mhm.
remember when before it was early on in our marriage, before we had kids, we went to this Bible study at church. And thankfully, the lead pastor was leading it, and it covered 80% of the Bible. And I remember I couldn't. It was,
Uh-huh.
you're just like trudging through the Old Testament, and I'm like, okay, great, the Psalms, right? And then I'm like, wow, this is actually like not as uplifting as I thought it would be.
Mhm.
And the reason I say that is because I think that's because life is hard, and I think the Psalms are there to show us how to be in relationship with God when things are good and when things are hard. And I think that Psalm 13 is one of my most favorite
Mm.
Psalms, and it starts with "How long, Lord?" and it ends in "I will trust in your unfailing love because you have been good to me." And, the Psalms are full of lament and also often end in hope. And so
Mhm.
that's why in this book it's kind of modeled after his observation of the Psalms. And then also there's a psalm in every chapter as well.
Yeah. Well, and they're all songs, right? And so it's like you can
Mhm.
be lamenting, but also singing. And those
Mm,
can be
it's good.
true at the same time, like
Yep.
it's all related and I love it. So, can you, for someone who is listening and is feeling completely overwhelmed, whether it's from driving way too much and eating way too much fast food, or you need to go organize your house, or like going through something major in life, like what could be one small step that they could take towards living this and life, or a couple
Yeah,
steps?
I think for me, I have a kind of quick prayer time in the morning before I go work out and get dressed and all those things before I get the kids. And then, at that point, after I've taken the kids where they need to go, I've gotten myself ready. I've experienced life that day already. And so before I open up my laptop to work every morning, which is between 9 and 10 a.m., I pray over my aunt. I tell
Mm.
God what is stressing me, what is frustrating me, what is disappointing me. And I tell God what I'm thankful for. And sometimes those things are connected. Sometimes, like the way that each chapter ends, and there's an and section in at the end of each chapter where they're kind of connected. Like, okay, I can see I'm stressed out about this, and I can see goodness playing out in the stress this way. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes just things are hard, and I just need to say, and I am so grateful for this. The view of the water today is bringing me so much peace, right? But it's just always keeping in mind that hard things are here. I can admit those. And God's goodness never runs out. God's goodness somehow, some way is always present. And just thanking God for that presence before I get into the meat of my day.
How has that rhythm changed for you as you've gone through kind of well, a lot of life and parenting and having really young kids with some challenges to now, and you've walked through that like order, disorder, reorder. Like, how has that morning rhythm or daily rhythm, whatever it looked like, changed?
Yeah, I mean, hmm. That's a good question because when I had really little kids, you're just kind of surviving. I don't know. I
Totally.
did I did not thrive as a toddler mom. I don't know. I'm sure
Neither
there
did I.
Yeah, that was not my jam. And so I noticed that when I was at my healthiest, it was a prayer that went on throughout the day. And
Mhm.
I still feel like that goes on now, but like I needed it all day long, and maybe it wasn't praying in my and all day at that time because I kind of discovered this concept a little bit later. But yeah, now it's something that I do kind of at the end of my morning and at the end of the day before I go to bed. It's a rhythm that just keeps me grounded, I feel like, in my humanity and also God's goodness.
Yeah. But I I love your honesty that it wasn't quite like that in the toddler years, because
Yeah.
there are probably other people who are listening that that's not, even if you love the toddler years, I mean, like, when you wake up in the morning, you are going, and then
Yeah.
by the time you hit the pillow, you're like, "I'm out." So there's just no there's just not as much space, and so just, like, the gentle reminder that, like, it doesn't have to be in the morning or at night, like, this throughout the day,
Throughout the day, yeah.
relying
It
on
doesn't
God.
have to
Yeah.
be a journal either. It's just a conversation, and that is.
Yeah, when you're putting kids down for a nap or cutting up snacks or all the
Mhm.
things that just feel so redundant. That's what I found is when my kids were little is all those little redundant tasks. If I could turn those into like prayers or conversations with God and just like moments of gratitude, that was so helpful because I did not have the brain capacity to sit down and like pray through my ands in the
Yeah.
morning at that
You
time.
know what? Now that
Absolutely
you
not.
say that, I think that we were in a little rhythm. Obviously, we went to a lot of doctor's appointments when we were in
Yeah.
those years, and I feel like it was driving in the car too,
Mm-hmm.
just like playing worship music, singing along, like actually singing,
Yeah.
not just like mindlessly listening, but like that was really healthy for me at the time.
Yeah. And isn't it funny that now car time is just as valuable, just in a different way? It's like
Yeah,
having conversations and
conversation.
yeah.
Although I really
We just
struggle
always
with
live in the
that with
car.
my 8-year-old boy. Like, I don't know how to get him
Oh.
to talk more in the car. It's like he gives me the basics and then we're done, and I don't know, I'm gonna get it out of him one day. More
So
details.
my boys are like, they'll be really quiet. I have 2 boys, and they'll be really quiet until it's bedtime, and I am very much done, and they wanna then go over their entire day, and I'm like, "Okay, this is, I guess, when I'm gonna listen, but this is really hard for
Yes.
me because 'cause I'm so
That I've
tired."
Yes, like, I've heard of my friends doing that too, like laying down next to them, and then it just all comes out.
Yeah.
So, I need to give that a try.
Yeah. Well, everyone's different, and we all just do what we can to figure it out, you know?
Yes. And it's always
Can
changing.
you tell Always. Yes,
Mhm.
100%, especially as they start to go my teenager now goes to bed so late that I'm like, I go to bed before you some nights." Like, it
Yeah.
just always changes. Can
Mhm.
you tell us where we can connect with you and get this book and other books or any other resources?
Yeah. So my books are both available on Amazon, Target.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and you can get them 30% off on Baker Books, or depending on when this airs, you can get it 40% off on Baker Books if you pre-order Overwhelmed and Grateful. And
Oh,
then I'm
amazing.
on Facebook at Jillian Benfield and Instagram at Jillian Benfield blog. And I also have 3 free ebooks on my website as well.
Oh, great.
And yeah, and so
Yeah.
it's a good way to connect, and I'll sign you up for my newsletter, which I send out once a week.
Yeah. I'll get all that in show notes so that people can find it really easily.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being with us and just sharing all of your wisdom. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can't wait to go to the beach whenever I get to Florida.
Yes. Let me know. Let me
I
know.
really will. I really will. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Christian parenting.